Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hey, everyone. This year is flying by. I think every year flies by, but this one has been really quick. We're in August now. I just want to thank our sponsors for bringing all these great episodes. Today is no exception. This is a powerful, important episode. So I just thank you guys, everyone, for listening, everyone who's been supporting us and for listening, for tuning in, because there's so many other things you can listen to. But I would like to thank Keto Mojo. They're my go-to device for checking ketones and glucose levels. And they do a lot of great research. They're really pushing the envelope with some of the science, and also just really helping to support practices like mine and patients like you. And so, Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com. They have great information, great videos online, but it really helps us to track our ketones, and we get excited when they start going up, and kind of realize we have to make some changes when they drop down. So if we want to be in fat burning mode, the best tool we have is Keto Mojo. So I thank them for their support. And also Health Code, Ben Bickman and brother Joel, who from this podcast. They're doing some great stuff. Their nutritional advice is excellent. Their life advice is outstanding, and they're doing just great work. So I'm so honored to have them as a partner in the podcast to bring these stories to you. So Get Health is their website, GETHLTH.com. Met Health is a discount code. Just because me, it's METHEALTH. Doesn't matter if it's capital or not, but just thank you, and please buy stuff from these guys. They really do support us, and they've been the backbone of this podcast. So they keep us going. They keep bringing these stories for you, and they let me just get up here and yammer on or whatever I do here. So thank you. Have a great day and enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I'm just doing a quick update on the LowCarbUSA Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners conference here in San Diego this weekend. It's Monday now. So I'm reflecting. What a great time. It was a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of the people that we've had on the podcast, or that we haven't had on the podcast yet, that I would like to. But really, the thing that really impacted me, and not only because I was talking about it, was the importance of community, of helping each other. And then at the same time, as you know, we had Hurricane Hillary was supposed to roll through and destroy all of our houses and all that kind of stuff. And, just talking to people about what really matters and what's important. And some people had to skip out early just to make sure they can get flights home. But, spending time with some great people, great docs, getting to meet people who are getting their life back together. Couple of people, Brad and Maggie Jones, they have a great story about remission of cancer. I'm hoping to get them on soon to talk. But just sitting down with people as human beings and talking and spending time together, and maybe even having a glass of wine or two with a couple of people, you start realizing life's too short and we have to make the best of it. And as I looked around, the thing that really struck me compared to most medical conferences that I go to or have been to, I haven't been to big medical conferences in a while because I'm not very popular there. But at this conference, I look around, I have Dr. Hampton sitting next to me with his lovely wife. One person after Doug and Pam and who put on the conference, and so many of the great Michael Eads and Mrs. Eads and Mrs. Dr. Eads, actually, she's a doctor also. But you see these people smiling, happy, interacting, and you go, why is that? Is it just a coincidence that this group is not on the arrogant side and they kind of get life a little bit more, and talk after talk after talk that were outstanding, scientifically based with tons of research done. But I think some of the biggest things that impacted me, Jane Bullen came out from Nutrition Network from South Africa. Professor Noakes, who you heard me talk about a lot. She was their speaker from their group that came out, and she really talked about stress and just realizing like the importance of taking a deep breath here and there. And one thing that she said that really struck me was that no other animal that we know of, mammals, we're at the top of the food chain, I know, but no other animal eats because of stress. Yeah, you don't see a deer running away from a bobcat and then say, I'm going to stop and eat some grass on the way. I'm just going to take it easy. And we respond differently than any other animal. And the things that reflect on that is that we see worsening irritable bowel syndrome, reflux, all this stuff when we eat when we're stressed. So guess what? Maybe we should look at the stress component. And what I saw there at all these different tables were people smiling, having a good time, even though we know that the hurricane could be coming in to cause some havoc. We were enjoying them. Maybe we felt like we were the people sitting on the deck of the Titanic the day before, the iceberg. But really, I think a lot of people have a different perspective and they're not living in so much fear, and they kind of take things as they come and they keep open-minded. There was actually Dr. Knob was there talking about seed oils and a lot of things that we agreed on, but there were certain things that he brought up that some people said, wait a minute here, this is different, like a rice diet where people could lose weight on rice, but physiologically it didn't make sense to the rest of us, just knowing what we know. But looking at that and having a cordial discussion and saying, hey, why do you believe what you believe? Why do I believe what I believe? And to cap that off, we had Dr. Tony Hampton, which I'm pretty sure we're related through our bloodlines at some point because our sense of humors are similar. Sorry, Tony, I'm going to throw you under the bus for a minute, but we think the same things. We laugh at the same things and all that. And he lives in Chicago. I live out here in California, so I'm not sure how we cross paths, but it's such a great thing to hear him talk. He gets up there and says, look, in medical, we all know in medicine, the most important study is a randomized controlled trial. And throughout this whole last 3 years, people would say, well, if there's no randomized controlled trial, we're not looking at it. But Dr. Hampton gets up there and says the most important trial is an N of one. That means experimenting on yourself and seeing what works for you. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It really doesn't. So if it works for you, great. If it doesn't work, don't do it. But what I do see in all this is the effects of stress, loneliness, anxiety, not sleeping, drinking too much alcohol. All those things have a role in how we deal with other people and how we deal with others in society. And so Dr. Mark Cucuzella, who's another hero of mine, gets up there and he's talking about, cardiac disease and calcium scores, which we talk about a lot. And he says, despite all this, everything we talk about, cholesterol and sugars and all that, the biggest indicator of longevity is relationship. In my talk, I talk about Rosetto, this little podunk town in the middle of, or the east end of Pennsylvania, 1,600 people with super low mortality rate. Guess what? They had relationship and they had each other and they had each other's back and they watch out for each other. And grandma and grandpa had the grandkids to take care of. So they had a purpose to live longer. So their cholesterol was no different. They had to work. They didn't exercise more than everyone else. They played bocce ball, but 85% of people were in a social connected group. The night before I go to this conference, I was going to cancel my weekly or every other week Zoom meeting with my patients, but I'm so glad I didn't, because one of the people there, like in the middle of me talking, which is probably monotonous, and they wanted to change the subject anyways, but that's besides the point. Said, hey, can I say something, doc? I said, yeah, please. And she picked out one of the other ladies. She said, you know what? I see you glowing. I see that you just look fantastic, and all the effort you put in is really paying off. And like, you're an encouragement to all of us. I just want to tell you that oxytocin levels, feel good chemicals, stress hormones, every face I looked at. Of course, the lady that was directed at was smiling and happy and doing great, but every other face I could see, because it's like the Brady Bunch with all the faces up there, we could see each other. Everyone smiled at that. right? There's good medicine right there. That's very helpful for us. So, being kind and decent, because if you're nasty to everyone, guess what? It's like looking in the mirror and you get reflected back at what you put out there. And a lot of people just don't realize that. So, arrogance and all these nasty traits that a lot of us have, it just doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you, you know to put a punctuation mark on it, Dave Feldman, who's doing a lot of work in the cholesterol, he's taught me a ton. This guy is one of the most decent, kind, and he will get upset if I say this, but don't tell no one tell him this will be our secret. Decent, kind, humble people that I've ever met. And he does a great job with science and he's taught me a ton. And based on what he's done, I can advise my patients in maybe in a little different manner, saying, okay, look, here's what the data says, because in medicine, when you step up against the tide, you get crushed. It has never been more evident than the last 3 years. Gary Taubes, who's one of the greatest writers in low carb, got up there and he had a long presentation, just flying through slides of different thoughts on obesity and why it happens. And you see, there's in U.S. may have a different school of thought than they did, but in Europe. But what happened was one school of thought wins out and no other research is done in the other school of thought. So this is the whole idea of censorship and the whole idea of saying, hey, this is solved. We don't look at any more research, and medicine falls way down if we can't be open-minded. So anyways, Dave is up there giving his talk, and during the question and answer, one of the great other people in low carb said, hey, here's a quote from one of the leading lipid people in the world with all their credentials. So basically the doc says, don't take this guy Dave Feldman seriously. He's a TikTok star. He's a social media guy. He has no credibility, no credentials, and so he attacked him personally. So I was like, wow, that's not very like not attacking the science is one thing, but attacking the human being is a different thing. And at the end, the guy puts all of his credentials on there. So Dave hadn't seen that because we were at the conference. So someone read that question to him and goes, this is what they're saying about you on Twitter. What do you think? And how does Dave handle it? He says, you know what? I feel really sad about that, actually. I think he's a smart guy and has a lot going for him. And he's very smart. I was hoping we could talk and collaborate and kind of figure it out together. But once you call someone an idiot, I mean, it really makes it a challenging situation. But the way he handled it without having a reaction, I think, how would I have reacted to that if someone attacks me personally and not my science? And it happens all the time, by the way. So, I started thinking along those lines and thinking, man, we have some really solid, great people here. And, I just tweeted this morning about it, or X or whatever we call it now. Dr. Anthony Chafee was at this conference, and this guy walks, and I'm sitting at the back table. This guy, and anyone who knows him, like I've been hearing a lot about him. He's a carnivore. He looks like Prince Charming. He walks in, he's wearing a suit, and I'm like looking down, going, "Oh, I should have dressed for the part." Like no one else was wearing a suit, but he walked in and he was suave and debonair or whatever you want to say. I'm like, this guy's a good looking guy. He's a beast. He's like a foot taller than me, which isn't saying much, but he's a foot taller than me still. But I had the opportunity to sit down with the guy, and he's super smart, really cool. He understands the data. He understands the science. He's not arrogant about it. And I was actually really, I told him, I'm like, I'm super disappointed by this because I was hoping at least you would have bad breath or something. But super nice guy, very smart, very intelligent, very open-minded. And the more I saw people, they were open-minded to different ideas, saying, hey, if that works, let's look at it. And what Tony Hampton was saying of N equals 1, we look at that. And he also said what Tony talked about is we have to accept all people where they're at and understand and say, hey, how's that working? Can we add things? If you're vegan, how do we help you? Are you doing great and everything's good? Okay, talk to me when you need me, and not saying your point of view is incorrect. And that's why the juxtaposition of this doctor being very arrogant with Dave Feldman, asking about his credentials rather than his science, it's different. And so that's what I noticed in this community. People will attack your science and they'll go, okay, here's what I'm seeing in my clinic. And you can have a discussion and move medicine forward. And when we have this fear of having an open discussion, a cordial discussion, and saying, okay, you think insulin doesn't matter? Here's all my data, As a matter of fact, the great irony of all this is when Jane Bullen was giving her talk and she was really hitting some important topics, I got so excited about her topic and what she was saying and how she was presenting it that my sugars actually elevated. And that's not all sugar raising is bad. It's just that when you get an emotional response to something, whether it's positive or negative, we see that. So when I gave my talk, I was fasting in the morning like always, and gave my talk at 8, and you can see my sugars go up to 158 from like 72 or something to 158 while I'm talking, just because I'm excited about what I'm doing. And you're on stage and you got eyes on you, and your sympathetic nervous system takes over, and it stayed up for like 6 or 8 hours that day fasting. As soon as I ate dinner, it dropped down to my 70 normal, and everything turned out great again, right? So it's really to say that, and I wasn't feeling stressed. But I, obviously your rate gets a little faster and things like that. But yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to some great docs and people that type 1 diabetics and go, okay, how do you respond to different things? And we learn because of majority of people I deal with are type 2 diabetic. And so, okay, I'm seeing this in clinic. What do you think? And running things by each other. When you have great minds, like, I was able to give a little credit back to Jason Fung, who had a huge influence on my life, and Ben Bickman, who you hear me talk about. But Rob Sivas, who's like a bull in a China cabinet. He's like, the best thing that happened to me this weekend is when I found out he was leaving before the hurricane was supposed to come in, and I wouldn't have to answer any questions that he asked after my talk, because he's smart, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna ask me something, I'm gonna have no idea how to answer it. But I didn't have to worry about that. Everyone else was worried about the hurricane. I'm like, Rob Sivas is what I'm worried about. I'm not too worried about my house getting destroyed. I got insurance on that. So, anyways, these kind of things, and I think the perspective, and also I just got to talk to a patient of mine who she's had, kind of been a little down in the dumps, and life hasn't been exactly where she wants it to be, but she's been doing really great from a metabolic standpoint. She was really worried about her daughter, and I talked to her about that the week before I left for the conference. And I said, just be patient, because she's not the right messenger. And I go, just be patient, just be patient. So we talked today, and her daughter, she says, you're not gonna believe it. My daughter came up to me like 2 days after we talked and said, hey, I want to change my life. I want to exercise. I want to do low carb. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can help you with that. And so their relationship gets better. She's gonna feel better. She lit up talking about this. She also lit up when I asked her what she did this weekend. And she said, I did. I went down to there's a community center, and I help people shovel sand into sandbags so that we could help our neighbors. And she said, I had so much fun. She lit up, right? I had so much fun. When we're helping people, and like people are saying how nice it is what we're doing, and like, having older people, and we can go and put sandbags down to help them. And this gets back to what my talk was about with Rosetto. These guys did that. When there's a storm coming in, they helped each other. 9/11, when that happened, the greatest thing we saw was New Yorkers coming together and saying, hey, you need some place to stay, you need help, you need food, let me help you. And so great disasters bring out the best in us, and some people will be looting and stealing from people. Of course, there's going to be that element, but there's so many more people that are going to do the right thing and help each other, And so the other miracle that happened when I was at the hotel, I parked in the parking structure, and I left my bag and everything because I was running into the conference. And so my suitcase, everything was in there. And somehow when I put my keys in my pocket, I opened all my windows. So like 8 hours later, I come out and I'm like, oh my gosh, my windows are all down. I thought someone broke my windows. No, I was an idiot and rolled my windows down. But the miracle was no one stole anything out of my car, right? If I was in San Francisco, I don't think that would have happened, but I was lucky. I was also lucky in San Diego. So that could have changed the whole thing. It was like, okay, I have no clothes. I have my all my stuff's gone. And that kind of changes everything. But the big thing was, at this conference, really, I watched all these people of high esteem, of great educational backgrounds. And I would throw in all these other people like Gary Fetke and Professor Noakes and all these people that I've had the honor to talk to. Michael Eads, I had never met before. He's been around longer than any of us, with more experience than we could even think about. Super kind, humble, funny, and nice. And I go, why is it that all these people are nice and decent and have good relationships, right? Could nutrition be part of that? Is it cause and effect? Is it just that they're lucky? I don't know. But what I see is a lot of decent, nice people. And one of my patients who I met with this morning said, oh my gosh, at dinner, we had so much fun. We met new people from all over, and they're just starting the journey, and other people have been doing it for a while. And so it's amazing to see, a community, and Doug and Pam from LowCarbUSA who put on these conferences. It's stressful for sure. But they do such a great job. But they love it. They see it. They see these interactions. They see the community. So I think the take home is like, build community, be a decent person. if you have to throw your credentials around all the time, maybe you're not as great as you think you are. When someone knows they're all that, they don't have to come and tell you about how great they are. So I think Dave Feldman is a great example of that, being humble, and he has the potential, if he's correct, to change medicine. If he's incorrect, he'll say I was wrong and here's why. And but I, knowing what I'm knowing and seeing what I'm seeing clinically, I really highly doubt that. And ultimately, we need to step back and say, okay, if you're vegan and stressed all the time, you're probably not going to live as long as someone who's a carnivore and is happy and kind. Or if you're a carnivore and you're a jerk to everyone, you may not live as long as the vegan who's happy and kind and nice and doesn't stress about everything. I'm saying it's not necessarily just about what we eat. And I will concede that the people in Roseto were eating an Italian diet with pasta and bread and all these things. So can we overcome some bad dietary decisions by being kind and decent and helping each other out? I don't know. That's up to uh, science to figure out. But I'm telling you, I have yet to meet anyone that has heartburn, headaches, poor sleep, migraines, whatever, you name it, autoimmune disease, that say, man, everything was great. And then I get rid of my stress, and then everything went to hell after that. It's the opposite that I hear. For 20 years of practicing medicine, I can with 100% certainty tell you that getting your rest, getting your sleep, being kind to people, all these things play a role in our health. And that's why I started this podcast. And I just got to sit down there with an atheist friend of mine, and we had a great time and a great discussion, right? And had fun. And like, we didn't attack each other, but we had a great time. And so, don't try to push your religion or your nutritional bias on everyone. Don't be there telling everyone they're wrong. No one wants to hear that. But you can love on them and be kind. So when I leave these conferences, I go, yeah, okay, I'm gonna be more like Tony in this way, Dr. Tony Hampton, who has the Protect Your Nest podcast. He's a great guy, great people all around. And what I will say is, right before I was speaking, I looked into the audience, and I looked at least 10 people I know that I would love to hear a talk from that weren't speaking. And I thought, you know what? I wanted to say, you know what? There's 10 people here that I can just pick out right now that should be up here talking instead of me. But in my wisdom, I know never ask a question that you don't want to know the answer to, because other people, yeah, I agree with you. Get down, let these guys get up there and talk. But luckily, I held my tongue a little bit. But just being there, having my wife there and letting her know Tony's wife and have everyone get to know each other. And it's just so fantastic. As a matter of fact, the disappointment was so many people were like, hey, Brian, when's your wife coming? When's your wife coming? I'm like, what about me? No one wants to see me. But that says something, right? That says something about it. And just seeing everyone enjoying each other's company and having a good time, knowing that natural disaster could happen, the next day or whatever, and just seeing people enjoying each other and realizing what life's about. And some people had to skip out early, but the people who stayed, they asked what the worst disaster was at the conference, and they said my talk. But besides that, everyone was super cool. But anyways, don't take life so serious. Have fun, laugh a little bit. Being kind to people never hurts. If someone needs sandbags, go dig sandbags. And I can say that the people of Roseto didn't do worse because they were kind and nice and decent and watched out for each other. So that's something to think about. We want to explain all these things away, but you go, does it make a difference? I only got through about maybe 2/3 of my slides because there was so much data on the effects of stress, poor sleep, anxiety, loneliness. Being lonely is a huge, huge problem. 80% of adolescents are lonely. They report loneliness, and I believe it's like 40 to 60% of seniors. And this is predating lockdowns. So yeah, we really got to take care of each other. If you have a kid in your neighborhood you could help, if you have a senior that you can help, when you help them, you're helping yourself because you're raising your oxytocin levels and you're lowering your stress hormones and cortisol. You can't take a pill for these things. We have to live our lives. And if it means going to the beach, if it means knitting, if it means being in choir practice, there was a study I didn't get to. So anyone who likes me, that, this study showed that they took 65-year-olds and they said, okay, here's our intervention. This half is going to go to choir practice once a week. The other half is going to be not doing that. They just stay at home and do their thing. The ones who went to choir practice had a statistically significant decreased depression score, anxiety score. They had better sleep and less doctor's visits. there's not a lot of strenuous exercise that's happening at choir practice. But what is happening is people are going there saying, yeah, I'm really concerned. My son's been sick, or I'm really having a hard time, in life right now. I'm really down. And then someone can give them a hug and be nice to them. So there's definitely a benefit to our human connection, right? Robots will never replace that. And so the amazing ability and the resilience of the human spirit is amazing. So when we go through the hard times, that's when we got to pull together. And maybe that's part of the reason we go through these things so that we can learn. And I will tell you, I'm very proud to be a part of the community with good people like all these people I've mentioned. And there's so many more. But and the other thing that I'll tell you, and I've been talking about this for a little while, and it's really, really been on my heart. Tro knows we talked about this before the pandemic, is the physician burnout rate. One of the sad things, I hate to talk about this, but it's important, is we had the highest suicide rate in the history of the country in 2022, right? Vast majority military or ex-military vets with PTSD and coping with coming back to life. Number two is healthcare workers, physicians in particular. And you think these are the healers and they're killing themselves. What's wrong with us? We got to figure this out. We got we already have a doctor shortage too. And on average, 2 doctors a day are killing themselves. Why? They came into the world to help everyone and now they're struggling. And when you're rushing through and you're not efficient and you're not helping people and you're stressed and trying to meet numbers and click boxes and take care of calls and all that stuff, it's a struggle. And that's why when I look back at myself and what I'm doing now, people ask me if I'm happy. I'm like, the better person to ask is my wife, because making the change to direct primary care and focusing on metabolic health, I absolutely love what I do. I'm having a blast. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. My patients are getting better. We're taking people off meds. And this whole team of doctors around the world are doing the same thing. And we all seem to be happier than every other doctor that we see out there. I know I wasn't happy. I was happy at home, but not working 18-hour days and getting up at 4 in the morning and rushing to the hospital and getting home at 10 at night, things like that. It's it does make it takes a huge impact, because we're not uh, as doctors are not immune to the effects of stress and not sleeping and being tense and not having relationship, so as Mark Cucuzella says, the most important thing is relationship. And there's no way, knowing what I know, that I would disagree with that. And the studies show that. So this is not just an opinion. So maybe it's not the Mediterranean diet, maybe it's the Mediterranean lifestyle, and in our conference, we had people from all different areas. And I'll tell you what they had in common. They all had community and they live longer. When you look at the what we call the blue zones, and a lot of that has been debunked. Dr. Hampton did a great job of talking about that and saying, okay, here's the reality. These guys were eating meat. They were eating this, but they all had community. We don't like religious people, but they had community. I don't like the vegans, but they had a community. So having a community is a big deal, and we all need each other. We can't look at each other as traffic and vectors and think we're going to be happy and enjoy life. And living in fear is not a good way to live. So I think part of it, when you have hope and faith and you can go forward, like what we find is looking at the data on people who are cured or have reversed disease, the common denominator is they go all in on something and they believe, right? They have faith. It could be faith healing. We've seen those, but there could be that you change your diet and go, I'm not going to worry about life stress. I'm not going to worry about this stuff. So my question is, if that reverses metastatic cancer or contributes to reversing metastatic cancer, what does it do to prevention of these illnesses, right? And ultimately, life's best medicine is figuring that out for ourselves and being an N equals one and saying, what works for me? Where do I find my joy? And if you think the Three Stooges are funny, then watch the Three Stooges. If everyone else thinks you're an idiot, okay, big deal. You'll live longer, right? And if you're miserable and antagonistic to everyone, why do you want to live longer? Right? We need to really have that human connection and enjoy each other and laugh and tell jokes and say, yeah, I made a mistake or whatever. Just being a human being, and these people that I'm around, I'm energized and charged up and really have a new focus. And also, when you see someone who excels in an area that you don't excel in, you want to model those people and go, man, I want to be more like Tony. And it's funny, we all tell each other, I want to be more like you in this way, and I want to be more like this person this way. So, and also, preconceived judgments on each other. That's another thing. It's like, some people you go, I don't want to like this guy. He's perfect in every way, and it's makes the rest of us look bad. But it's awesome when you're around a nice person who gets it and they take care of themselves and they're contributing. And There were no fake smiles there. I can tell you that. And so everyone, go do fun conferences, go do stuff you enjoy if you like. Think about it. One of the trick questions I ask my patients is, what do you do for fun? And I am stunned by how many people look at me with a blank stare back. Like, you got to figure that out for yourself. What do you enjoy? Is it donating? Is it volunteering? And let me leave you with one more. I think I've mentioned this before, but I think it's important. I had a patient come in and I was reviewing his chart on the weekend before Monday morning meeting with him. I'm looking through it, like getting upset with my office manager. I was like, Mary, you should have screened this one a little closer. And I'm like, this guy's blind in one eye, going blind in the other eye. He has 1 foot amputated. He's got back pain. Under surgeries, it says 62 to date and pending or something like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's a total train wreck. What am I going to do to help him? He's already a disaster. I can't fix this. And so he comes in, me prejudging the patient, which I might have done once or twice in my career. He comes in, he has a pirate's patch on one eye. And so I go, hey, what do you do for fun? And what does he do? Light up. And he says, you know what? On Tuesdays, I go and help the kids at an underserved area. I read them stories. And then on Wednesday, I go to the VA hospital to help injured soldiers. Then I do this on, I was like, what? How do you have energy to do all that stuff in your condition? And he smiles and says, well, if I wasn't helping them, I would just be at home miserable and I wouldn't be alive right now. I have no other choice. Right. And he loves doing it. And so if you're doing it because you love doing it and you want to help people and you're called to do that, great. Don't go do stuff that you resent, and you won't get the physiologic benefit, and neither will they. And so doctors, if you're going through the motions right now and just saying, I'm going to see as many people as I can and rush them through and not connect, then you're doing more damage to yourself, because you're going to be frustrated and upset and not enjoy what you're doing. When you impact people, we all get oxytocin, right? So we all been high on oxytocin this weekend. And so life's best medicine is for you to answer, right? That's why I like to ask my guests that, because Sean Baker's life's best medicine might be different than mine. And my atheist friend may have a different life's best medicine than a Christian believer or whatever. But we all really want to be decent humans and leave a positive impact. So let's get to work doing that. Have a great week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.